If your son and your daughter-in-law are law enforcement officers and making cases and presenting them to a jury, maybe you should conflict. Maybe your prosecutor does not believe they can drop that case if they need to, if their dad is their boss, is the one that is actually going to make the decision. So before you can start with law enforcement, you have to start with your own house. You have to conflict when it's good. If your political opponent who says they want to run for state attorney gets pulled over, and the lieutenant from the sheriff's office says on the cell phone, now this is in a deposition, should I arrest him? And your answer is yes, you should conflict off that case. You should not prosecute that case. You must first get your own house in order.
Thank all of you for being here, and those of you that are watching online for taking an interest in our community. Like many of you, I believe we are blessed to live in this part of our great state. This is one of the safest places to live and work and raise our families, and I want to keep it that way. I'm Larry Basford, and as your state attorney for the last 3.5 years, it has truly been an honor to serve and protect you. As your state attorney, I've pursued justice in every case, and my decisions have been determined by the law, by the facts, and on my desire to keep our community safe. When I was campaigning 4 years ago, I made some promises to you. I promised you that I would keep our community safe and that I would keep crime rates down. We've done that. I've worked with our brave men and women in law enforcement who put their lives on the line every day to serve and protect us, to keep our crime rates down, and they are down. Governor DeSantis has recognized our office as being the best when it comes to putting dangerous people in prison. So I've kept that promise. I also made a promise that I would use my leadership and experience to mentor and train the prosecutors that work with me. When we go to court, we go as a team, and I still try cases. That's the reason we have some of the best prosecutors and some of the highest conviction rates in the state of Florida. I also told you that I would be open and honest with the decisions that we made. And I've kept that promise. We've been transparent and honest and open when we meet with victims and tell them how we made our decisions and why we made those, as well as the public and the press. I've kept those promises, and that's important because in an election year, talk is cheap. As a prosecutor for over 30 years, you've trusted me to try some of the most dangerous people in this area. And I've used that experience to be able to mentor and train our younger prosecutors. In addition to that, as a career prosecutor, I'm the one that prosecuted the man who brutally murdered David Turan, an Air Force major, outside his home in Forest Park. And the man from Georgia who sits on death row because he abused and killed a young 14-year-old little girl, Melinda Henson, at a hotel room just across the street. I've used that experience, as I said, to mentor our prosecutors, but I also know that from experience, not everyone is dangerous. I'm the prosecutor with experience and a proven record of keeping our community safe. And that's why I'm asking you to vote for me as your state attorney. Thank you.
Prosecutorial experience is not the only thing that is important in the criminal justice system. Now, what's important is upholding the system that we have. It's not just putting people in jail. Is that an extremely important part of the job? Absolutely. Is making sure that the kid who makes a mistake doesn't get set up for a life of the revolving door in and out important? Absolutely. What is important is defending the Constitution, not a rule, not a best practice, not anything else. It is the Constitution. And what have I done since I graduated high school? I have raised my hand and I have defended the Constitution. First, I defended the Constitution by joining the United States Marine Corps after 2 planes flew into buildings, which most of us can remember. I will never forget the day I made that choice. When I came home from the Marine Corps, my job was not done. I joined the community of law enforcement, the people who actually keep us safe. The members of law enforcement are invaluable to our community. Do we have an important job as prosecutors to make sure that the cases get prosecuted, that proper convictions are brought with proper evidence? Absolutely. But make no mistake, the members that wear blue and green are the ones that truly keep us safe. I have had boots on the ground as one of those members of law enforcement. And what I can tell you is that experience has really colored everything that I've done, because when you take somebody's liberty, there is truly nothing more important that you can do to make sure that you have the facts right. Now, one of the things you can do to do that is actually take a look at the cases. When you get a case in, take a look at it. And if somebody does not need to languish in jail, get them out. But more importantly, if you don't have the facts to keep the people in there that need to be there, follow up. Follow up. And I'm sure we'll hear a lot about this throughout the night, but making factual prosecutions is what keeps us safe. Because if we don't, just like a year ago when 10 people were released from prison, that's not keeping us safe. It is important to have experience. I've got experience as a United States veteran, as a police officer, and if you'll hear Mr. Basford speak, he's the only one with experience, but I would tell you that he has a specific kind of experience, and I have a different one. You'll hear a lot about human trafficking, and I can say that that is one of our largest faced problems that we have. Fentanyl and drugs are absolutely an issue, but one of the largest unaddressed issues, because we simply don't really know how to track it well, because usually you're not prosecuted for human trafficking. You're prosecuted for the prostitution or the murder or the battery. But the actual human trafficking charge itself many times goes to the wayside. So what can we do? Well, we can do a few things. First and foremost, we can start tracking it. I would use my position to go to Tallahassee and say, it's not just enough to have a statute for this. We need to have an enhancement on the criminal score sheet, so every single time a child or an adult that is being trafficking is taken advantage of, we not only can track that so we can get funding and we can know how we're doing, but we can also make sure that if there's an enhancement there, they stay in jail longer. We keep the people that need to be in prison in prison. Not that we're not doing that now, but if you ask anybody, honestly, many people will tell you that you cannot really track right now with a good certainty the human trafficking numbers. And that's because right now, you either go on a wild goose chase or you get them with the easier crime, the one that might get them there longer. But that does not mean that they should not pay for that specific crime.
There are many critical issues facing the state attorney's office and law enforcement here in the 14th Judicial Circuit. But specifically to the state attorney's office, given what's going on in our country, how people are frustrated when they see what's happening in New York and California and Washington and other places that we really can't control what's going on out there. It is vitally important now more than ever that people have faith in the criminal justice system and faith that their state attorney will always do what is right. Yes, we do have problems with human trafficking. You may just recall that we prosecuted a man last year, Hunt, a man who was involved in human trafficking that had a lengthy criminal record, and he had targeted one of his human trafficking victims, and instead of killing her, they killed another young lady, Lexi Peck, over there in the Cove and shot 3 people in that home. We prosecuted that case, and he now sits on death row for killing that young lady and trying to kill 3 other people. But that's not the only problems we have. This drug overdoses that you've heard and the fentanyl coming into our county and our state, poisoning our young people, those are critical issues also. And we have to address those, and we have faith in our state attorney that will always do the right thing. It might not be the popular thing, but but you can count on, as long as I'm in the office, we'll do the right thing. Our decisions will be based on the law, on the facts, and on my desire to keep our community safe. I guess that's about all I got to say on that. Being the state attorney is more than just being a manager of an organization. The state attorney has to be the leader of the team there at the state attorney's office. And every good leader knows that you do not demand respect, you have to earn it. And you earn respect by being in the trenches, by getting your hands dirty, and by leading by example. I've done that. And that's what it takes to be an effective leader. In addition to that, you talked about things to improve the things at the state attorney's office. Well, at the state attorney's office, as you know, I'm responsible for prosecuting crimes in 6 counties. I have 6 county chiefs that supervise the individuals in those offices, and they report directly to me. Now, we are constantly evaluating our attorneys and our programs to see how we can do better, how we can be more efficient. For instance, we moved away from a paper file system to a digital system, and that's allowed us to be much more faster and efficient with our prosecutions. In addition to that, I like to take time after an attorney has prosecuted a case and sit down with them and say, hey, what did you do right? What you think you could have done better? And what you need to be successful again when you go in the courtroom. That's important because I've worked my way all the way up from the bottom to the position that I have now. And along the way, I learned those valuable skills about talking with people and developing my trial skills so I can mentor and teach these young lawyers that we have. We have a great teamwork there at the state attorney's office. When we go to court, as I said, we go as a team and we're successful when we go.
Experience does matter. For the last 12 years, I've ran businesses. I've started businesses. I've been managers in large law firms, small law firms, and medium law firms. The last 12 years of my life has been managing individuals in one way or another with about a year break in there. Now, with that being said, it goes a lot further than just leadership, because this is not just a leadership question. A little while back, and every office has issues with personnel, but a little while back, about 5 people left the state attorney's office one week. And as you can imagine, that causes an uproar. So to keep people here, you have to do what you can do. And my suggestion would be to do that with leadership, initiatives, pay scales. But a prosecutor with about 7 years of experience got a $35,000 raise and became higher paid than a female attorney who had been there, I think, roughly 21 years and is the head of the sex crimes unit. Now, from a compression standpoint as a manager, what in the world do I do with that prosecutor who's been there for 7 years when I have now jettisoned the pay astronomically beyond a level of experience and act of desperation? I should not have to get there. I should never be there in the first place. We need to start looking at what can we do to retain these people. One of the prosecutors went down south to make less money. Another prosecutor went to the public defender's office to make less money. So it goes beyond how long you've prosecuted cases. It goes to how you treat your people and how you run your business. And the state attorney's office is one of the largest law firms in the district, in the circuit.
Mr. Basford, would you like to rebuttal? You have 45 seconds.
We are the largest law firm in the state attorney's office and the 14th Judicial Circuit. And I believe that raises should be handed out based on merit. This prosecutor with 7 years of experience is one of the best prosecutors that I have in the office, and he has shown an effort by working hard, putting in the overtime to develop his trial skills. And that's the reason he got that raise. As far as recruiting people, we've raised the salary of the state attorneys, the entry level, from $50,000 to $70,000 to recruit and try to retain our prosecutors. Turnover is always going to be an issue at the state attorney's office because we're great grounds, training grounds for trial attorneys. I'll address this my next question.
You have 15 seconds left.
Because we're a great training ground for trial attorneys. We lose them to law firms who can pay them much more money for making, for less stress, less work, and sometimes they're even able to work at home. And if you look around, almost half of the judges that we have in the 14th Circuit had some experience with the state attorney's office before
Thank
they
you.
were.
As late as last year, we were spending $2 million a year to house people in Walton County. Now, all the while, we had people maxing out 60 days for camping on the beach, 60 days for simple trespass, things that are absolutely crazy. There is no good reason for that. Now, all the while as well, there's no prosecutor assigned at the jail. There are a lot of these people that would love nothing more than to get out, but they have to wait either for another pretrial date or something else. When if you would take the initiative to send somebody to one of the many rooms, I've asked Sheriff Wharton England, and there are plenty of rooms there to do this. You just have to want to do it. What I can say as well is about 7 or 8 months ago, it might be a year ago now, we had a special day where the judges got so fed up with the criminal population of the jail, they just started calling people back. Mr. Basford was there, another attorney was there, and they cleared around 88 people, I believe it was that day. At the next jail meeting, everybody got upset, and Mr. Basford said, look, we just don't have time to do this. Now, you can make the time if you want the time, especially when you're spending $2 million a year in Walton County. And by the way, they did not want to come back from Walton County because when you leave that jail, you leave with a skill. You leave with something, a program. There is a lot there. So they were happy that they got transferred over. And what I can say is that our sheriff's office is working exceedingly well on getting new programs there, but they were happy they were gone. But when you have people maxing out for camping on the beach 60 days, and you have to get a supervisor's approval to drop that down or get them out, that's a problem.
Let's remember where we are. We live in Northwest Florida, and we don't catch and release in Northwest Florida. Our citizens expect us to keep our community safe, and that's what we're doing at the state attorney's office and with our law enforcement partners. This is not LA, this is not New York, and we're not going to let it get in that shape. Every one of those individuals that are out there at the jail are there for a good reason. They're either dangerous, a judge has made a decision that there's probable cause to hold them, and they're dangerous, or they represent flight risk, or they're being held on a violation of probation or held for some other jurisdiction, and there's good reasons that all of those individuals are there. It's not, explain this to me. Do I have just, I've got to quit, or I can keep talking because I've got 2 minutes to
You can keep talking.
Okay. Quit waving that flag in my face. That's what I should, okay?
That was the 45 seconds for your rebuttal, and now you've got 2 more minutes to go.
Kept waving it. I wanted to stand up and salute you. Thank you. This problem with the jail started back when we had Hurricane Michael and we had to shut down some of our court operations temporarily. And then as we were getting on board and moving those cases and that backlog along, we got hit with COVID, and that delayed things even further. But working with our criminal justice partners, and I mean the public defender's office, the judges, probation and parole, as well as our pretrial release people, and the sheriff's office and the police departments in giving citations and warnings instead of arresting people, that has helped bring our population down. And last September, as of last September, we no longer have anybody over in the Walton County Jail. And another point, yes, we did have to house people over there, and it cost us about $54 a day to house people over in the Walton County Jail. But it cost us around $50 a day to house them in the Bay County Jail. And that money that was spent, it was money that was spent, but that was none of the Bay County taxpayers' money. That was some of the funds that were available from COVID relief to help with situations like that. This camping on the beach for 60 days, that's an anomaly. Most of the time when that happens, somebody is sentenced to around 2 or 3 days or time served for those types of crimes. And if that individual was there that long, it may very well have been because he or she had some mental health problems and they were trying to find a place for that individual rather than putting them back on the street. I Guess that's about all I have to say on that, other than we are good stewards of your money and we understand the cost involved in housing individuals. But at the same time, it is my job to enforce the law and keep our community safe, and I'm going to continue to do that.
45 seconds for rebuttal.
As far as being good stewards of money, let's just cut to the chase. After Mr. Basford got elected, he employed former State Attorney Hess, paid him in the range, and you can correct me, somewhere around $145,000 a year to have one case, which he lost at least twice. I do not believe that's a good steward of our money. He also has part-time employees in the northern end that were making $80,000 a year when the starting attorneys were making $60,000 with full benefits. Now, that was discovered, and we had to correct course, and they brought that salary down to only around $60,000 with full benefits for part-time.
In regard to Mr. Hess trying that case, if you recall, after Parkland, the state attorney down there, Michael Sykes, remained on board to try that case because of so much time that he had invested in this case. In the case that Mr. Hess was involved in, he had months and months of work involved in that case. It was very voluminous, not just boxes of cases, but rooms of cases. And it would have been a waste of time and talent and resources to take an experienced prosecutor off of a caseload that they're handling for 2 to 3 months to come up to speed to prosecute that case. Mr. Hess prepared that case for trial 4 times. The first time it was a mistrial because of what one of the witnesses tried to tamper with the jury. The second time it was a hung jury. The third time it was a hung jury. And the fourth time, when he had it ready to go to trial, the defendant decided they would end up and plead to the case and pay their part of the restitution.
Thank you.
That was a good effort and a good expenditure of money, and he didn't make anywhere close to $140,000.
Moving on
I
to the
think the
next
total
question.
was.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
All across the nation, state attorneys and public defenders are facing this problem: recruiting and retaining people. What we've done here locally is reach out to our law schools and be very proactive in recruiting them. When we interview people by Zoom, if we like that person, we invite them to come to our office and experience what we have here, to meet our prosecutors, let them talk individually with the prosecutors. We take them over and introduce them to the courthouse personnel, the judges, and walk them around. We take them out and wine them and dine them like the law firms do, or that some of the coaches do, so they don't have to just come in here and leave. And we've been very successful in recruiting those people once they come here and see our beautiful beaches and what we have to offer. In addition to that, I've raised the salaries up, as I said earlier, from $50,000, which is what law enforcement officers make, to $70,000. And there was a compression issue all along that way. But you have to understand, when we have lawyers coming out of law school, some of those have debts of $150,000 to $200,000 or $300,000, and it's hard for them to make payroll. It's going to be a constant problem, not just with us, but also with the public defender's office, and you can ask Mark Sims about that. Just recently, the state attorney in Miami was quoted in giving interviews how she had lost 187 prosecutors in the last 2 years. So this is a problem that is going to continue, and we have to be recruiting by going to law schools and recruiting people and making it very attractive for people to come work for our office. Because if you're a prosecutor, although that's a humble calling, sometimes the people have financial considerations and they have to make more money, and that's the reason they go work with people like Morgan and Perry and Young and other places. But we're doing our best, and we have paid interns. That's the first time this summer, and those paid interns have indicated that they want to come back and be prosecutors with our office. Thank you.
I'll circle back around to something Larry said earlier, and that's talk is cheap. At the end of the day, you are the manager of one of the largest law firms. You can't just call a school and set up a Zoom and hope you're going to get the best and brightest legal talent. You need to get out of Bay County, get in your car, or get on a plane, whichever you choose, and you need to go to them. You need to show them that you're taking the initiative from the absolute start. You're not going to get the best and the brightest, even if that's the newest best and brightest, fresh out of law school or otherwise, by simply hoping that somebody will answer an ad and that hopefully a Zoom interview will go well. You have to go to them. whether you're in the private industry or whether you're in the public industry. I've had to recruit talent, retain talent, and attract talent, because otherwise I would have to have a very difficult conversation with my wife across the table. It's not just, well, we're going to have to shift some things around. It's, if we don't do this and we don't make this work, we're going to have to shut the firm down. And those real conversations are, again, one of the things that separate me. Again, it really doesn't matter. And what I would say is, how about a recruitment bonus? What I can say is, I know personally, I'm willing to dedicate up to 10% of my salary, if allowed, back to the state to recruit people to come here, moving bonuses and other. I know Mr. Basford not only has his salary, he also has a full retirement. So I would ask if he would make the same commitment right now, that he would donate at least a portion of his salary to make sure that we get sign-on bonuses, moving bonuses, or otherwise, as the state would allow.
Yes, talk is cheap when you don't know what you're talking about. We have been to law schools to recruit people. We have encouraged people to come here and visited with people at the law school. Florida State, the University of Florida, some of our attorneys are from there, and we've been very successful with those efforts. But we recruit all across the United States. We have lawyers from Liberty coming here, lawyers from Tennessee coming to work with us, lawyers from South Florida. So we're very active in our recruiting efforts, and you'll see, as I indicated before, we have these legal interns from all over the country also. We're paying those, and they've indicated that they want to come back and work because they've seen the team atmosphere and the professionalism that we have in our office.
If a police officer is engaged in misconduct, either on or off duty, how does the state attorney's office their conduct?
Well, obviously, that depends on who the officer is, okay? And the reason I say that is because we have had deputies and we've had patrol officers that got in trouble with DUIs and other forms of misbehavior, on duty and off duty, and we've prosecuted those. However, if it is the head of a department, for instance, if it would be a sheriff or a chief of police, that's a whole different matter altogether, because we have special relationships with those individuals, okay? We have to have a good working relationship with them and with their departments. I know what this question is referring to, perhaps from what happened up there in Lynn Haven. In that case, because of our working relationship with that chief, and because we had a murder case pending and we knew how important our working relationship was with that office, we decided to get an executive assignment and have the governor assign a special prosecutor to handle that case. So there would be no indications that there was any special favors or anything done with that officer. If it's an off-duty situation where there's just some official misconduct by an officer, sometimes that affects their credibility, and we have to look and see if whether or not we can use that witness in the future in any cases where he or she may be called to testify. Each case is different, and we have to base our decisions based on the facts and circumstances of each case. In the case where we saw an executive assignment recently, that is what the people would expect me to do when we're prosecuting someone like that, that is the head of a department or a sheriff, for instance.
If you're expected to go after errant law enforcement officers, you first have to have your own house in order. In that Lynn Haven case, the conflict said, well, I'm best friends or I'm really close friends. It was 3 weeks later. It does not take 3 weeks to know that you are so close with somebody that you need to conflict off. If you're so close with that person, you also should be conflicted from that person's son. And your office dropped that person's son had an illegal baiting case in Washington County 10 days later, and you dropped it without conflicting. Now, if you're too close to him here, why are you not too close to him there? If your son and your daughter-in-law are law enforcement officers and making cases and presenting them to a jury, maybe you should conflict. Maybe your prosecutor does not believe they can drop that case if they need to, if their dad is their boss, is the one that is actually going to make the decision. So before you can start with law enforcement, you have to start with your own house. You have to conflict when it's good. if your political opponent who says they want to run for state attorney gets pulled over, and the lieutenant from the sheriff's office says on the cell phone, now this is in a deposition, should I arrest him? And your answer is yes, you should conflict off that case. You should not prosecute that case. You must first get your own house in order.
You know, there's an old saying that goes, you should not criticize someone unless you've walked 1,000 miles in their shoes. Some of these allegations that are being made are just not true. For instance, we did not wait 3 weeks to get a conflict in the case involving Chief Ramey. When Captain If came to my office to speak with us about the case, I told him then and there we were probably going to have to conflict out of the case, and within about 2 days we sent that letter by email to the governor's office. In addition to that, this talk about Brady letters involving an officer who had mishandled some evidence, we sent out timely Brady letters on each of those cases to notify not only the defense attorneys handling that case, but all of the other defense attorneys. And we took appropriate action when those were brought to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
The evidence is undisputed. I'm the experienced prosecutor with a proven record of keeping us safe. Safe when we send our children to school, safe when we go to work, safe when we worship, and safe when we go to sleep at night. I trained and prepared for this job for over 30 years, and I did it by starting at the bottom and working my way up. Along the way, I learned how to deal with people, and I developed trial skills that would enable me to lead the experienced team of prosecutors. Under my leadership, we've been successful and we've done a good job. Crime rates are down. Governor DeSantis has recognized our office as being the best in the state in sending dangerous people to prison. Hurricane Michael was devastating, but we used a construction fraud task force to get them thousands of dollars in restitution. When you are deciding to vote for a state attorney, think about this. When you need heart surgery, you want the best surgeon to do the job. When you fly in a plane, you want someone with hundreds of hours in that cockpit. And when you are the victim of a crime, you want a proven prosecutor with an experienced record of keeping our community safe. I'm Larry Basford, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Experience, as we both agree, does matter. But think about the experiences of people underneath this administration when people in the news that you know should be prosecuted or not, but your sons and daughters are. Think about the people's experience whose cases languish only for a video to be watched 5 months later and that person to be let go. Think about their experience. You want the person who flies the jet a lot, is what I hear. Under the previous administrations, Bob Samothy was head of major crimes and had a 30-0 record. Since he has been removed, we've had roughly 6, unless I have one that I'm missing, murder losses. You can shake your head, but it's public record. So ask yourself this. Yes, you want the pilot who's flown a lot. Do you want the one that's crashed 6 times in the last few years? I don't think you do. I don't have as much prosecutorial experience, but what I do have is experience with actual boots on the ground, actually putting people in jail and actually building cases. And I will put the people around me that will make sure that the job is done.
State Attorney Larry Basford and Eric Garmon. Thank you, all of you who have attended the debate tonight. And if you missed any of it, you can go to wjhg.com for a full recap. For News Channel 7, I'm Jessica Foster. Everyone have a safe trip home.
Right.